Donald Trump Cabinet. All of the President-elect's appointments. Perdue served as the governor of Georgia from 2003 through 2011. When he was elected in 2003, he was the first Republican governor of the state in over 100 years. This is a particularly important position in the Trump administration, as when Trump was a candidate, he repeatedly promised to reform the Department of Veterans Affairs. Lighthizer was the Deputy United States Trade Representative in the Ronald Reagan administration. The 69-year-old has a degree in law from the Georgetown University. Mulvaney is known for being a fiscal hawk, and his nomination shows that Donald Trump intends to severely cut spending as president. When Zinke ran for his House seat, his campaign focused in part on the issue of energy independence. He is also an advocate for public access to federal lands. This is a surprising choice, considering when Perry ran for president in 2012, he vowed to completely eliminate the Department of Energy. This was the third department that Perry famously could not name during a Republican primary debate, which caused him to utter the "oops" heard around the world. Tillerson has no foreign policy experience, but Trump says that he likes Tillerson due to his business success and his history of making deals with foreign governments. Puzder is a critic of raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. He also opposes mandatory paid sick leave laws and the expansion of overtime pay eligibility, saying that these kinds of regulations will force businesses to increasingly rely on automation, as he explained in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal earlier this year. Pruitt, the Attorney General of Oklahoma, has spoken out against environmental regulations, and he is part of a group of attorneys currently suing the EPA's Clean Power Plan. In addition, Pruitt believes that climate change is a debate that has not been settled. Alongside her husband, Vince McMahon, Linda McMahon helped grow the WWE from a New York business into a massive corporation, and she became president and CEO of the WWE in 1997. Her only political experience is a position on the Connecticut State Board of Education, which she held for 1 year. McMahon also unsuccessfully ran for Senate twice as a Republican. Kelly is the former commander of the United States Southern Command, and before that, he served as commanding general of the multinational force. He is the highest-ranking military officer to have lost a child in the war. His son, Robert Michael Kelly, was killed in Afghanistan at the age of 29. This position came as something of a relief to many who were concerned about Donald Trump's anti-China rhetoric and actions, such as when he recently took a phone call from the president of Taiwan, which China does not recognize as a sovereign nation. The appointment of retired neurosurgeon Ben Carson to the position of Secretary of Housing and Urban Development was a bit surprising considering that Carson has no political experience and that he recently said he would not be joining the cabinet. A major setback is the fact that Mattis is not technically eligible for this position. Federal law states that a defense secretary cannot have served active duty in the past 7 years, which would make James Mattis ineligible for the position. In order to nominate him, Congress needs to pass legislation bypassing this requirement, which they previously did in 1950 in order to appoint General George Marshall. However, some Democrats have already said they will oppose this waiver, including Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York. During the 2016 Republican primaries, Ricketts was a supporter of Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, becoming co-chair of the candidate's fundraising drive. He later donated $5.5 million to Our Principles PAC, an anti-Donald Trump political action committee. However, Ricketts got behind Trump when he became the nominee, in September donating $1 million to a pro-Trump. The Ricketts family is worth over $1 billion. Trump has been criticized for appointing so many billionaires to lead his cabinet, and Trump defended himself this week by saying that he wants people who were successful in their careers. Wilbur Ross, Trump's nominee for Commerce Secretary, is an investor and banker who is the chairman of W.L. Ross & Co. and who has a net worth of approximately $2.9 billion, according to Forbes. He has become known for taking over and restructuring failed businesses. Like Donald Trump himself, Ross is a critic of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He also strongly supports Donald Trump's plan to massively cut taxes for corporations. During Donald Trump's presidential campaign, Mnuchin served as finance chair. When the Mnuchin announcement was made, many of Trump's own supporters expressed disappointment that someone who has worked for Goldman Sachs for 2 decades will have a role in his cabinet, particularly after Trump accused his political opponents of being controlled by Goldman Sachs. This is one of the picks from Trump that has been almost universally praised among Democrats and Republicans, with Vice President Joe Biden recently cited her on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert as one of Trump's best cabinet appointments. However, the Chow pick is another one that contradicts Trump's plan to drain the swamp. Donald Trump picking Georgia Congressman Tom Price as Secretary of Health and Human Services represents his desire to immediately repeal and replace Obamacare, as Price has been one of the Affordable Care Act's harshest critics ever since the law was first proposed. From 1999 to 2008, McGahn was a chief counselor for the National Republican Congressional Committee. In 2004, he established a legal practice, McGahn and Associates PLLC, which represents the Freedom Partners. Freedom Partners is partially funded by the Koch brothers. McFarland has been critical of President Obama's foreign policy, specifically of his approach to combating ISIS, saying that Obama is a weak leader who isn't up to the task of defeating terrorism. Donald Trump has made similar but much more extreme statements, repeatedly saying that Barack Obama is responsible for ISIS to the point that he should be named its founder. In particular, DeVos supports voucher programs, which would encourage students to enroll in private schools using public money. In fact, DeVos is the chairman of the Alliance for School Choice, an organization that promotes school voucher programs and which is the largest of its kind. In fact, during Haley's response to the State of the Union earlier this year, she clearly made reference to Donald Trump when she said, "During anxious times, it can be tempting to follow the siren call of the angriest voices." Haley later described Trump as everything a governor doesn't want in a president. Trump attacked her on Twitter. Pompeo is also a critic of the Iran nuclear deal, which Trump has called a disaster. Despite Pompeo's role in the Benghazi investigation, some Democrats recognized that he was a fine choice and is qualified for the position of CIA director. This is perhaps Trump's most controversial pick considering that Sessions has a history of being accused of racism. In 1986, Sessions was nominated to serve on the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Alabama, but he was not approved after a number of accusations of racism came out. Sessions backed Trump early on in part due to Trump's hard-line stance on immigration. Not only is he for cracking down on illegal immigration, but he's also for cracking down on legal immigration. Michael Flynn, a retired United States Army Lieutenant General, will be Donald Trump's national security advisor, and he is yet another controversial choice. This is primarily due to his comments on Islam. For instance, he tweeted in February that fear of Muslims is rational, sharing an anti-Muslim YouTube video with his followers. He also said in an August speech that Islam is a cancer, comparing it to Nazism. This decision has sparked controversy, as Bannon is the former executive chairman of Breitbart News, a far-right website known for racist and anti-Semitic articles. Bannon was Trump's chief executive officer during the presidential campaign. Priebus is the current chair of the Republican National Committee, having served in that role since January 2011. He was instrumental in securing Donald Trump the Republican nomination, declaring after the Indiana primary in May that Trump was now the party's presumptive nominee. Though Priebus did not say so directly, this statement was a clear signal to John Kasich that he should drop out of the race and leave Donald Trump to claim the nomination.